For our Across the Aisle segment tonight, President-elect Donald J. Trump told 60 Minutes' Leslie Stahl that as far as he was concerned, gay marriage is settled law. Now mark my words here, but I think President-elect Trump could be the most pro-gay president in our nation's history, and liberals will never even notice because they're too busy in their safe spaces. With me now to discuss the whole thing is Democratic strategist and partner at Caldwell Strategic Consulting, Stephanie Mickle. Stephanie, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Liz.
All right, Stephanie, talk to me about this 60 Minutes interview. It was the first sit-down interview for President-elect Trump since he'd been elected. And I thought one of the striking things, what I just said in the introduction, was his comment on gay marriage, that as far as he's concerned, he considers it settled law.
Right. Well, you know, Liz, this may be one of the few times that you catch me on air agreeing with something that he said, but it is settled law. The Supreme Court has made a decision in the Obergefell case, and it was a 5-4 decision, but it is settled law.
Right.
They upheld the right to marry for same-sex couples.
All right, let me push you a little bit, and this is what I like about our conversation, Stephanie, because I feel like both of us, we both try to agree with the other side. We're not so ideological, so partisan that if the other side scores a point, we can't admit that. But we see all these protests on the street right now, and a lot of these young people are holding signs that are saying that Trump is anti-LGBT, that he's anti-gay, that they're worried for their safety as gay and lesbian Americans. Stephanie, is this going to be one of those situations that even if President Trump is the most pro-gay president in history, because we remember President Obama wasn't even pro-gay marriage when he was elected office, are some liberals going to be too bitter to admit that Trump is pretty pro-gay?
So let's talk about this just a little bit.
Sure.
The protests are coming from people who are concerned with valid reason, but because they're just not sure what a Trump presidency will mean for them as gay and lesbian individuals. I think by addressing the issue of the Supreme Court, I think it was an attempt for him to initially say, listen, this is settled law. That doesn't mean that they don't still have those concerns, but I don't think that ultimately it will be something that, at least I'm hopeful that it'll be something that he abides by.
Right. I guess in regards to the protests, it confuses me a little bit, and that's the nicest word that I can think of. Well, why these people would be unsure about how they'll be treated under a Trump presidency if he is saying right from the get-go, before he's even taken his oath of office, before he's sworn in, if he's promising to protect gay and lesbian Americans, why are they unsure to the point that they're so fearful they're protesting in the streets? Yet when Obama, a Democratic president who said at the beginning of his term that he thought marriage was between one man and one woman, why weren't they in the streets then?
So there are two things, Liz, that you bring up. The first is that the country was in a very different place when Obama took office. The LGBT community has made tremendous strides under the Obama administration. They went from not having don't ask, don't tell to all sorts of things, to recognition under the law of various protections in the government. And now, so now with a Trump presidency about to begin, they are looking at those strides. Now, to answer the other part of your question, the reason I think one of the reasons that they may be concerned is because of the people that are around President-elect Trump, most notably the vice presidential-elect Mike Pence, who has been on record as being very anti-LGBT measures. He passed a very restrictive law in Indiana. He supports things like conversion therapy, which is highly controversial in the LGBT community. Right. And so that may be part of the reason for the angst that I would point to.
No, I understand what you're saying. I think sometimes there's a misunderstanding on the left when it comes to the difference between being anti-gay and being anti-gay marriage, because except for the radical fringe few, and this is, I'm sure, true on both sides of the aisle, not just Republican, not just Democrat, I don't think very many people in our country are anti-gay people anymore. No one has a problem with how people choose to live their life, but there's a difference between being anti-gay people and being anti-gay marriage, and sometimes conservatives thought philosophy on being anti-gay marriage, and that might not even be the case with President Trump, but being anti-gay marriage has more to do with it being an entitlement by the federal government that they oppose, as opposed to being anti that individual and their sexuality.
Right, right. So it's an entitlement by the federal government as well as in religious communities. It's defined differently. So again, those and I understand both of those positions. But I think the other issue that you kind of alluded to, liberals and their safe spaces earlier, that is concerned is that. That creates a concern is that really there's just a tremendous amount of uncertainty. I think once we have some time passes and we have a real sense of what a Trump administration is going to mean for same-sex marriage,
right,
for other same-sex protections, I think people will become a little bit more clear in terms of what their positions are. But right now I think a lot of people are still very much in a position of being very uncertain.
Right, right, and that's understandable. That happens every time there's a transition. I can't help make fun of the whole safety pin thing, the whole safe space thing right now, though, because the same people who are wearing those safety pins, declaring themselves to be walking safe spaces or whatever it is, are the same people who are attacking the police officers, who are protesting in the streets, burning down people's businesses, breaking windows, assaulting conservative Trump voters, Trump supporters, and there's just a little irony there.
Well, you know what, Liz, I'm so glad you brought that up because you reminded me of something I wanted to mention, which is that because so many of the experts were surprised by the polling data versus the actual outcome of the election, there were so many on both sides of the aisle that were that really got this one wrong. I think that because that further compounds the safety pin analysis. It's like, okay, all right, is this really a safe space or is it not a safe space? Is this really a person that supports my issues, my concerns, or is it not? And I think that, the restoration of trust that's going to be required for us to move forward as a nation is going to take some time.
Right, right. And we'll have to see how President-elect Trump handles that. Stephanie, before we go, one last question.
Yes.
When it comes to the Democratic Party,
sure,
I think it's widely understood, it's widely admitted by many prominent Democrats that there's going to be need to be some sort of soul searching, some sort of rebirth of the Democratic Party after they lost the presidency, the House, the Senate, so many down ballot races in states across the country. And there are several names that are being floated for possibility as head of the DNC, among which are Howard Dean, Martin O'Malley, and Keith Ellison. Stephanie, who's your pick? What's your thought?
Well, you took the words right out of my mouth. We do need to do some soul searching. We do need to do some serious self-evaluation and thinking about how we want to move forward as a party. Of those three, I actually like Keith Ellison the best because he represents a fresh perspective. Martin O'Malley and Howard Dean are both outstanding public servants, and I truly respect everything that they've done. But I think that the Democratic Party, it really needs a fresh perspective and the ability to kind of move forward in a way that demonstrates that we are taking a fresh perspective.
Right, out with the old, on with the new, in a manner
of speaking. On
with the new,
absolutely.
In a manner of speaking, not taking it back to where it used to be.
Yes.
Stephanie, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for being on the show. Our next tipping point with Robert Panzenbeck. President Obama blames Republicans for his failed legacy. Surprise, surprise. We'll be right back.